Lexie Hull just showed up at the Indiana Fever training facility, and the internet is melting down. But here's what nobody's talking about. This isn't just another off-season workout. This is a billion-dollar chess move that could rewrite how the WNBA values players forever. Let me be crystal clear about something. We're not hoping Lexie Hull returns to Indiana. We're operating under the assumption she's already made her choice. And if you think that sounds arrogant, you haven't been paying attention to the money. Because here's the uncomfortable truth the league doesn't want you thinking about. Lexie Hull and Sophie Cunningham will make more money in endorsements staying with Caitlin Clark and the Fever than they would ever see from a max contract anywhere else in the WNBA. We're not talking about a slightly better deal. We're talking about generational wealth versus a bigger paycheck that disappears in 10 years. And before anyone starts crying in the comments about loyalty and team culture, let's get brutally honest. This is professional sports. These women have maybe a decade to secure their financial futures. You really think they're choosing a small market rebuild over the Caitlin Clark empire? Please. Birds caught Lexie on Instagram at the Fever facility. She's there with Keith Porter and Rob Dozier, the team trainers. Rob's making trick shots. Lexie's grinding through drills. And everyone's acting like this is just another player staying in shape during the offseason. It's not. This is Lexie Hull planting her flag. This is her sending a message to every other franchise in the league. I'm staying where the money is. I'm staying where the spotlight never turns off. I'm staying where championships happen. If you believe the story behind the story matters, the financial revolution happening in Indiana right now, smash that like button. It tells us we're on the right track. Now, let's talk about what this Instagram post actually reveals. Because on the surface, it's Lexie working out, totally normal. But read between the lines. Players who spend their offseason embedded with the organization don't leave in free agency. That's not speculation. That's just how professional sports work. You know who we're not seeing everywhere right now? Erica Wheeler. You know who's not posting daily stories from the Fever facility? Temi Fagbenle. That tells you everything you need to know about who the organization is prioritizing. And many of you have been saying this for weeks. You've been connecting these dots while everyone else focused on the surface-level drama. Lexie averaged 5.8 points per game last season. Not exactly all-star numbers, so why is she so critical to the Fever's future? Why are we treating her off-season workout like it's breaking news? Because Lexie Hull brings something you cannot replicate, something you cannot teach, something you absolutely cannot find on the free agent market. Hustle, reckless abandon, the willingness to throw her body on the line for charges, to dive for loose balls, to make winning plays that never show up on the stat sheet. You can find players who score more points. You cannot find players who impact winning the way Lexie does. Remember that play against Atlanta in the playoffs? Lexie Hull made the game-winning defensive stop. Not Caitlin, not Kelsey Mitchell, not Aaliyah Boston, Lexie. That's the kind of impact that doesn't register in box scores until it's the difference between advancing and going home. Now, here's where it gets spicy. If you ask me straight up who's the better player, Lexie Hull or Sophie Cunningham, I'm taking Sophie. That's not disrespect to Lexie. That's just facts. Sophie is more complete, better shooter, more disciplined defender, more versatile in different systems. But here's where Lexie separates herself. As a charge-drawing specialist, she's elite, truly elite. Can she guard Ryan Howard or Tia Copper one-on-one? Absolutely not. Those players will cook her with speed. They'll blow by her off the dribble. They'll make her look silly in isolation. That's why Kelsey Mitchell has to take those defensive assignments. But guards who like to work off screens, guards who use physicality and contact, guards who rely on strength over speed, Lexie Hull eats them alive. She'll draw 2 offensive fouls in a game and completely take you out of your rhythm. She'll frustrate you. She'll get in your head. And by the 4th quarter, you're not thinking about your offense anymore. You're thinking about her. That's irreplaceable value. That's the kind of defensive identity that defines championship teams. Sophie Cunningham is the opposite type of defender. She's a container. She's disciplined. She doesn't gamble. She makes you work for every single inch. But she doesn't have the lateral quickness to lock down elite guards either. Different players, different skill sets, both absolutely valuable to a championship contender. And honestly, I don't mind a rotation where both of them start at the 3 depending on matchups. I really don't. Because here's what people miss when they argue about starting lineups. The big thing for the Fever isn't picking between Lexie and Sophie. The big thing is retaining the core 5. Sophie, Lexie, Caitlin, Aaliyah, Kelsey. Those 5 players are the foundation of a dynasty. Lose any one of them, and the entire structure crumbles. The chemistry disappears. The continuity that took all season to build, gone. You're starting over. And in a league where windows close fast, starting over is death. Oh, and keep Caitlin Clark around for potential reasons. She probably won't play major minutes next year, but you keep her on the roster because potential matters in this league. Because in 3 years, when the core 5 are hitting their prime, you want that depth already developed. Once you lock down those 6 players, then you go shopping. Then you spend whatever it takes to land an elite power forward, someone who can bang in the post, someone who can guard Brianna Stewart and Aja Wilson without getting embarrassed. Get that piece, and the Fever are legitimate championship contenders. Without it, they're one Natasha Howard performance away from playoff disappointment. Because let's be real about what happened. Natasha got absolutely destroyed by Alyssa Thomas in the playoffs. Not close, not competitive, dominated. And that's not entirely her fault. She was asked to do something she's not built for. But it exposed the Fever's biggest weakness. They need an upgrade at the 4. One piece. That's it. One roster move separates this team from being favorites to win the whole thing next year. And the reason they could be favorites isn't just talent, it's continuity, it's chemistry. It's 5 players who've been through playoff battles together and know exactly how to win when it matters most. Teams don't just magically click. You can't buy chemistry in free agency. You build it over seasons of grinding together, losing together, learning together. So, yeah, seeing Lexie Hull back at the Fever facility isn't just good news. It's essential news. It's the difference between building a dynasty and wasting Caitlin Clark's prime. And that's the part nobody wants to talk about out loud. Caitlin Clark is on a timeline. She's got maybe 5 years before the league catches up to her, 5 years before age and wear start creeping in, 5 years to build a championship core that can dominate for a decade. The Fever cannot afford to waste a single season figuring things out. They need to strike now. They need to lock down Lexie Hull now. They need to sign that elite power forward now. Because in 3 years, when Caitlin's entering her absolute prime and the championship window is wide open, it'll be too late to start building. You'll be years behind teams that got it right early. Let's talk about something else nobody's discussing. Keith Porter is still in a walking boot 3 months after tearing his Achilles. 3 months. Now, I don't want to alarm anybody, but that's genuinely concerning. An Achilles tear is serious. We're talking 9 to 12 months for full recovery in most cases. And if you're still in a boot at month 3, something's not adding up. I tore my Achilles in college, graduated in the boot, had complications that set back my recovery significantly. So trust me when I say seeing Keith still restricted raises questions. Questions about the Fever's medical protocols. Questions about whether they're being aggressive enough with rehabilitation. Questions about whether they're learning from past mistakes. But let's get back to the economics, because this is where the story gets really interesting. The WNBA max contract is roughly $230,000. Sounds great until you realize what Lexie Hull could make in endorsements staying in Indianapolis. Caitlin Clark is pulling in millions from Nike, Gatorade, State Farm. Everyone in her orbit gets spillover attention. Everyone in her orbit gets brand opportunities they would never see in Phoenix or Dallas or Seattle. Sophie Cunningham understood this immediately. She took less money to stay with the Fever. Why? Because she ran the numbers, local endorsements, national brand campaigns, social media growth. The Caitlin Clark effect is worth more than any max contract the Mercury could offer, and Lexie Hull is making the exact same calculation right now. This is the billion-dollar secret the WNBA doesn't want you thinking about. Star players don't just elevate their own value. They create ecosystems where role players can build wealth that transcends basketball. And connecting the dots reveals something fascinating. Indiana isn't just building a basketball team. They're building a financial empire where winning and wealth compound together. What do you think about this new model? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Are we watching the future of team building in women's basketball? Or is this just a temporary advantage that disappears when Caitlin's rookie shine wears off? I want to hear your perspective, because this conversation matters for every franchise trying to build around a superstar. Now here's what makes Lexie's situation so unique. She's not a star. She's not going to sell jerseys or move ratings, but she might be the single most important role player on a championship roster. Because while everyone focuses on scoring and highlights, championships are won by players who do the dirty work. The charges, the deflections, the box outs that never make SportsCenter, and filtering out the noise, what we're really seeing is a player who understands her value isn't in points per game. It's in winning percentage. It's in the intangibles that separate good teams from great teams. Lexie Hull makes Indiana better in ways that don't show up until playoff games get tight and every possession matters. You were onto something when you noticed the Fever's defense improved dramatically when Lexie was on the floor. The stats back it up. Opponent field goal percentage drops. Turnover rates increase. Little things that add up to big wins. And in a league where margins are razor thin, those little things become everything. Let's be honest about something else. We don't actually know how important a defensive playmaker like Lexie is to winning a championship. The WNBA doesn't have enough championship data points to say definitively. But here's what we do know. Every dynasty in basketball history had players like her, players who sacrificed stats for winning, players who did the unglamorous work that made stars shine brighter. If you believe that style of defense matters, if you believe championships are built on more than just scoring, you're not finding anyone better than Lexie Hull. Not at her price point, not with her mindset, not with her willingness to be the supporting character in someone else's story. This is the moment. This is the offseason that determines the next decade of Indiana Fever basketball. And Lexie Hull being back in Indianapolis, working out with the team, building relationships with the training staff. That's the first domino falling in exactly the right direction. Now, does this guarantee she's staying? Of course not. Players change their minds. Offers come in late. Agents get involved. Nothing's done until contracts are signed. But if I'm a Fever fan, I'm sleeping better tonight knowing Lexie chose to be in the building. I'm sleeping better knowing she's embedding herself with the organization instead of exploring options elsewhere. Because in professional sports, presence matters. Proximity matters. The relationships you build in the offseason determine where you sign when free agency opens. And Lexie Hull is building those relationships in Indiana. She's showing up. She's putting in work. She's making a choice even before the choice becomes official. So let me ask you this. Do you think Lexie Hull is staying with the Fever, or is this just an elaborate smokescreen before she signs somewhere else for more money? And more importantly, if she does stay, does that make Indiana the favorites to win the championship next year? If you believe the Fever are about to become a dynasty, if you believe we're watching the beginning of something special, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're covering every single move this offseason, every signing, every trade, every decision that shapes the future of this league. The WNBA is about to get very interesting, and it all starts with Lexie Hull making the decision that could change everything. We'll see you in the next one.